I don't know anything about it. I just heard. And my only response to Mueller is, does it ever stop? After all of these years and times and people, does it ever stop? And the Democrats use it to try and divert from what they have, because what they've done, if you look and you see, and it's just my opinion, tremendous criminal activity on their side. And they know it, and this is a diversion. But I ask you this, does it ever stop?
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, President Trump calls out the leftist Democrats' criminal activity. Now, what is he referring to? Well, there's probably a laundry list that's longer than you or I have time for, but we're going to cover some of the highlights plus what's happening today in the news. I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I always like to begin by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Also, hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. So, today, we are on exactly 1 month ago from the last Q post, and I'll tell you what, there is a lot going on. You couldn't have timed it any better. Of course, President Trump leaving today exactly 1 month from the last Q post for Japan to go to the G20 to meet with China, and then a stop after with South Korea. So, of course, that was the latest post that we got from Q, one of the last two, and I thought that was interesting, so I figured I'd point that out. But obviously, we're still in a holding pattern, waiting for more Q posts to come. So before we get into today's episode, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. A few important stories that are breaking and some important analysis that I want to cover. But I always encourage everyone to come back here, watch these videos, share them on your social media, get the word out that way. Because look, we all know what's going on with social media and big tech and how they've obviously been caught red-handed trying to censor what they call right-wing conservatives or whatever you want to call it, and to censor Christians through these stories that are breaking. So you guys got to come here. You got to hit the share button, and you can tell when they put their thumb on the scale to tamp it down, it would seem. But you know, it is what it is. We'll just keep persevering through this, and your help is really what matters when you come and hit that share button. That makes a big difference. And if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon the Great Awakening? I encourage you to come here, watch this video, What is QAnon the Great Awakening? You'll get all the information you need there about QAnon and the Great Awakening. So today, the first story we're going to do is this. It's kind of like an opinion piece, and I want to read this to you. And it's very short, so I want to read the full thing because I think it's poignant, and it basically lays out exactly what I was thinking and what I've been trying to convey, I guess, over the past, who knows how long we've been covering this NXIVM story, but they've put this together very succinctly and clear, and I want to share it to you. Share it with you. It says, NXIVM, the first domino falls. It says, the conviction of Keith Raniere on all charges as the operating head of the NXIVM sex slavery network challenges a common belief that the mass media exists to help protect the public from such predators. Many of these institutions are now provably covering for the wickedest and of criminals because it implicates them and their allies in further and even worse crime. To recap, the NXIVM case involved international human trafficking, child porn, forced labor, psychological abuse, body mutilation, false imprisonment, kidnapping, racketeering, blackmail, and more. You might have thought that such a lurid case with connections to Hollywood stars and senior politicians would be front page headlines and top of the nightly news. That it is not, tells you something is badly wrong. The most disturbing part of this story for me is how NXIVM was running 11 daycare centers for children, and the media is silent on this. Rather than importing victims from Central America for abuse, it seems that NXIVM was farming their own, and this isn't the first such case. NXIVM's elite sex crime network is now proven in court, and there's compelling evidence of far worse revelations to follow. The executive order in January 2018 declaring a national emergency in human trafficking and seizing assets is also a fact. The bulk transport of children and drugs across the U.S.-Mexico border is a fact. The exceptionally high rate of arrest and conviction for crimes against children is a fact. Meanwhile, the concerted efforts of the mass media to persuade you that human trafficking is not a major issue and indeed to normalize pedophilia is also a sad fact. The deliberate underreporting of these arrests and convictions and emphasis of manufactured distractions and crude diversions is also a fact. The difficulty of taking basic preventative actions against smuggling children like a physically secure border is also a tragic fact. These facts all point to a very disturbing picture, not just of widespread sexual violence by a privileged class, but also a systemically corrupted justice and media institutions, protecting them and their supply of victims. Journalism is meant to work for us, the public, and direct justice to those who are most vulnerable. Clearly, mainstream journalism has failed here. That NXIVM has only come to light now, especially if you are first learning about this from me, should give us all the chills. Yet these revelations also give us hope that things are improving. Everything I see tells me that NXIVM is just the beginning of a revolutionary process of mass justice. This is going to roll out over the rest of this year and into next year. For NXIVM is small fry compared to other cults and networks that are going to be exposed. NXIVM just happens to be the first to emerge from the darkness, giving the public a bitter foretaste of what's about to arrive. The American justice system is being cleaned up and corrupt law officers and judges removed. There are truly huge numbers of sealed cases in process, orders of magnitude above normal. Something big is coming. The next step in this transformational process of reasserting the rule of law is tackling the corrupted mass media. The evidence I see suggests that the Fourth Estate was infiltrated and subverted by the same institutionalized crime networks that have allowed NXIVM to operate without impediment. Now, the head of NXIVM is convicted. It sets up a chain of evidence that allows for the customers of these trafficking networks to be prosecuted. What has gone on behind closed doors is a real-life horror show. With access to children being currency, the currency of corrupt power, many rich and famous people will be going to prison. NXIVM is a wake-up call for everyone. The sick reality of our society is not going to be easy to accept, and the mainstream media is deliberately withholding it from us. That's a conspiracy fact. And I would point this to if you ever, I'm going to leave a link to this, if you ever have anybody give you a hard time about the mainstream media, and when you say the words fake news and what you're talking about complicity and cover-ups, this is a piece I want you to share with them. And I want to make this viral. Hopefully you guys share this one on your social media. Obviously, I'll leave this in the description. And it sums up exactly what I think we should be taking away from the NXIVM case and looking at as a sign of things to come. So I had to share that first here. I thought that was very fascinating and something you guys should hear. So here's another story that we're going to talk about. We've heard about Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs being the 7 supercomputers. And what were the 7 supercomputers doing? And why did Q mention this so much at the beginning? Q mentions the program Snow White 20 plus times, it seems here, in the first few months of posting. Why were we continuously being told about Snow White? Well, it has to do with this possibly. And people have always speculated that when Q said that the servers were being taken offline, what was that actually referring to? So in order to understand this, you have to understand that there are these machines that are involved in this deep machine learning, where they're having conversations with people all across the internet to figure out how to have conversations, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, and to make themselves into such a realistic, real-to-life person that they can fool real people into having conversations with them. This technology has existed for quite some time. It's been in use in all types of different or on all types of different platforms where, just what you see with Siri and Alexa, where you have a conversation with them and you can actually sometimes have like a semblance of a conversation. Well, they've had much more sophisticated chatbots on the internet for a very long time, where there would be like websites you could go to, or it'd be like, have a conversation with a chatbot. And it would be a bot that was learning how to have a conversation while you were having a conversation with it. So this technology's existed. But what were Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs that Q's alluded to? This was the servers that were being used and weaponized and turned against the Chan boards, where Q was posting, and other internet forums. So what's being cited here is that it says, what if I told you that Snow White is a CIA program to create an unaware and compliant citizenry? It says, what if I said the 7 Dwarfs are distinct AI personalities created by that program to influence human thought through the manipulation of social media? It says, what if I told you they turn this power on poll, which is the 8chan board, politically incorrect. So think about this. Let's just try to grasp the gravity of this. 7 supercomputer AI personalities that have been weaponized with the most advanced technology our government has to go out and to learn how to make conversations and to deceive real people into believing that their digital persona is a real life person. Now, what if I were to tell you that these bots may have been turned on and used against these open speech forums in order to what they term as shilling, but what is really just basically discrediting, defaming, demoralizing, you name it, as a tactic. And you're talking about 7 supercomputers with distinct personalities altogether that can post in mass. I mean, we're not talking about just 1 or 2 posts a minute here. We're talking about probably as many as you could humanly put into the processes of a computer's hard drive or operating system and their components. So we're talking about supercomputers that are these online personalities that could be programmed to, I don't know, say awful, nasty things about the movement, to say anti-Semitic things or racist things, or to be weaponized to make the entire board look like a bunch of racists and anti-Semites, when in reality it's being programmed and operated and pushed through by a supercomputer that has been programmed to learn how to act that way in order to discredit movements and control an unaware and compliant citizenry. But they're programming us. See, this is the same thing we've learned with what Facebook and Google and all these tech companies are doing. They're programming us. So why would we be surprised that this operation was being used against us? Q told us, I don't know, like I said, 20 plus times here from the beginning about the fact that Snow White was involved in this from day one. And this was a part of the tactic that we were being told was being used against us. It even says here at one point where we get to near the last one, it was Snow White activated to silence. This was not anticipated. Control protection lost. Routing through various networks, jumpers randomly use or has created connection security issues working to resolve. So this is when Q was just starting out and they weren't sure it was going to be able to stay going because they had come up against this Snow White. Obviously, they found a way around it, or they were able to commandeer it back from whoever was weaponizing it against the movement. But this is just another example of things that we, future-proofing past, things that we're kind of figuring out as we go along. This is obviously a theory. It's still at this point, but I'll tell you what, there's some compelling, there's a compelling theory here if you look at the facts in their totality from day one and what we've been up against here. And this takes us to this story about the pro-Trump message board, the Donald over on Reddit being quarantined following violent threats. This is just another Orwellian push toward the path to silencing free speech. Of course, Reddit, as we know, is not is just another mainstream media company. There is no difference between them and CNN and NBC and the rest. So they're trying to censor their supposedly open forums as well. They already removed the I think it was the Great Awakening board over on Reddit. That was one of the biggest and most trafficked boards until they removed it. And also now they're going after the Donald board. So they're purging Donald Trump off the internet. In case you guys were not aware, they're purging conservatives off the internet. They're purging anyone who is involved in any type of political discourse off the internet, because the internet needs to be cleansed. It needs to be, basically bleached, if you will. Not like it needs to be cleaned of all of this, what they call hate speech and all of this, controversial conspiracy talk. That's what they're getting rid of. And you know what they're using the excuse of now is that there was encouragement of violence towards police officers and public officials in Oregon. This is one of their official statements. And what they're talking about, obviously, is a story that we covered here on the channel about, a few episodes ago, talking about the fact that you had state senators in Oregon who were purposefully leaving the state, fleeing the state to avoid signing a disastrous cap and trade bill that would have basically put a lot of businesses out of business. And it would have used science, very controversial science about climate change, and put it into the law. And they decided that they were going to abstain from the vote. But what they did is they decided to not allow the Senate to have a quorum, because obviously they're the minority. So in an act of filibustering, the state senators left the state and refused to show up to the vote. By not showing up to the vote, there wasn't a quorum. A quorum is a political term that means you have enough people there to have a valid vote. You can't have a valid vote if an X amount of people don't show up to that vote of your voting body. So they didn't have quorum. They left the state. The extreme leftist Democrats and their governor in the governorship of Oregon decided to use the state police and issue warrants for apparently the arrest of these state senators, this is the most Orwellian type of thought policing and just a dystopian future of authoritarianism and fascism we ever imagined. They're trying to track them down with the police to bring them in like political prisoners and force them to vote instead of respecting their constitutional rights and their ability to filibuster against that kind of in their view, wrong bill, and in the view of their constituents. So this is what we've come down to. And now Reddit's saying that they've decided to quarantine the Trump or the Donald Reddit because the encouragement of violence towards police officers. Well, what happened? A bunch of militiamen showed up in Oregon and basically said, you're not going to go track down these senators because that's a form of authoritarian fascism, and we will use force to stop you. I mean, I don't know if they actually said that, but I'm assuming that was what that's what they were intending, was to say that we will stand up for constitutionally protected rights and will protect citizens who are being politically targeted by the state. I mean, this is not like you went to a 7-Eleven and stole some candy, or you went to a bank and robbed it. This is like you are literally being you're being forced to participate in the political process at the end of a gun. That's what they were trying to do in Oregon, and that's what they stopped, the militiamen, and along with the very I think admirable state senators who decided to leave the state instead of participating in something they believe to be completely wrong. So this is where we've come to, where now is looked at as encouraging violence toward police. Well, then when the police start violating your civil rights and your rights in this country, is there a point at which you're allowed to stand up for yourself? Obviously, especially if you're in the right. That's what this is talking about. And I'm sure there was a bunch of agitators who said a bunch of really bad things, and I'm not excusing their behavior, but this is the crackdown on free speech. This is what's happening in the run-up to the 2020 election. They're purging the internet of every and anything that is pro-Christian, pro-Trump, you name it, pro-America, pro-sovereignty and freedom, pro-constitutional liberty. I mean, you can't imagine the kind of power that's being wielded against us behind the scenes. It's almost unfathomable. Here's, of course, what I think is very interesting. Somebody pointed out that Media Matters happened to have made an article, 2 days ago, about how the pro-Trump subreddit is full of calls for violence in support of Oregon Republicans. And lo and behold, 2 days later, as good little servants to Media Matters, Reddit decides, yes, boss, yes, masters, we will capitulate. We will go ahead and just quarantine that and shut down free speech even further in this country. It's really wonderful to see all this happening in real time. And of course, here's another story where they have all the reactions to it over on the Gateway Pundit. Of course, an interesting story there. Now, here's a story that I think I want to address very quickly. Facebook's Libra cryptocurrency betrays the company's true ambitions. Well, yeah, it does. And what this article goes on to expand upon, and I'm not going to is the fact that Facebook is not seeking to become a bigger corporation. Facebook is seeking to become its own independent sovereign entity, country, if you will. They're trying to establish a fiat currency, control access to all of their information and data, use that information and data to become the wealthiest individuals in the world. They're buying up who knows, untold billions of dollars worth of real estate globally. The not just Zuckerberg, but also the company and its holdings and assets. And this is really what we're going to be facing in this dark, dystopian future of Orwellianism that's being brought upon by these big tech Silicon Valley elitists. Is they don't want to be under the rule of any government. They want to be able to do business freely around the world, even though we all know Mark Zuckerberg was given the program LifeLog from DARPA, which became Facebook, which now he has weaponized, and obviously he's being controlled by. I think that what we've finally been able to establish with the whole Facebook thing and what's going on here is that Facebook is just a tool of the deep state to basically create their own unaccountable sovereign power in the world, right? And it's along with the entities at Google and all that supersedes the United States eventually in both, I mean, I guess you would say of monetary strength and value, but it's not even about that. It's about basically separating themselves from our country. So what they've done is they've used our country just like other countries. Like if you look at China and all these other deals that we've made where they siphon billions and trillions of dollars out of our country over years and decades, this is the same principle. These big tech companies are sucking our country dry. They've developed veritable monopolies on all of their industries. They've basically had one of the largest transfers of wealth into their own pockets and coffers. And now they're trying to start their own fiat cryptocurrencies to basically become breakaway societies in their own little, bubbles that are unaccountable to the American people and to the Constitution and the laws under which they organized themselves originally. So, yeah, I don't even know what to say. It is like a sci-fi movie that you can't make this stuff up. And now, of course, the House committee has authorized a subpoena for Kellyanne Conway, and they're trying to accuse her of violating the Hatch Act, which is it's a joke. It's completely laughable. The Hatch Act's a federal law that was passed in 1939 that limits certain political activities of federal employees as well as some state, DC, and local government employees who work in connection with federally funded programs. The law's purposes are to ensure that federal programs are administered in a nonpartisan fashion to protect federal employees from political coercion, in the workplace, and to ensure that federal employees are advanced based on merit and not based on political affiliation. Well, let me tell you what, if we're going to start prosecuting people for having a political opinion and getting on TV shows and talking about their political opinion, why don't we start with like half of the people that have been working in the intelligence community and all of their illegal leaks to the press. Let's talk about all of the illegal criminal activities that were done on the behalf of the Obama administration and their violations of what you would say possibly could mean the Hatch Act. See, the Hatch Act is something that is never really been enforced too severely ever. And now they're trying to use it as this obscure law, which, hilariously enough, the Democrats and the left are extremely guilty of violating a lot of times. And I don't have time to go through every single example, but let me tell you, the one that I thought was great was the one that was brought up here. When Mark Meadows blasted the Oversight Committee, this Nadler-run circus of just complete disdain and contempt for our United States and its laws and governing principles, that's what this committee has become. It's basically just a circus without any real power or authority. A bunch of pea brains on the left, and some spineless people on the right, and then there's Mark Meadows and a few others who are willing to stand up against it. So Mark Meadows kind of breaks it down perfectly. I thought this was perfect. So you guys watch this. We'll watch this clip.
That what we have here is a political spectacle. And we're talking about keeping politics out of government. This subpoena is nothing more than a political spectacle. And we are better than this, Mr. Chairman. We are better than this. I can tell you, as we look at this particular Hatch Act violation, so-called Hatch Act violation, if you look at what the Hatch Act is all about, it's about protecting federal employees. We're not doing any of that here today. In fact, we're setting a dangerous course where we're going to bring in every federal employee that has a Hatch Act violation when we are going to go and put a subpoena and put them on trial right here before Congress? It is wrong, Mr. Chairman. And I can tell you that if you look at what the Hatch Act is all about, it is not about Kellyanne Conway and her speech. Because if we're going to have the same standard, let me just tell you, there is ethical complaints about every single member of Congress that does some kind of TV hit here in the Capitol where they start to talk about it. Mr. Swalwell, Mr. Schiff, if we're going to use the same standard, they are violating, indeed would be violating the very rules of this House. And I can tell you that as we start to look at this is a... No, I will not yield. You'll have time in opposition. I'm sure that the chairman will allow you to do that. And here's what is troubling, Mr. Chairman. As we start to look at this subpoena, we have one standard for Kellyanne Conway and another standard for everybody else. And so if you're going to subpoena people, let's subpoena Samantha Powers. Let's make sure she comes in, because you know what I have? I've got emails on her official account where she was going after Donald Trump while she was working for our government, and indeed at the same time was unmasking individuals. So if we want to hold people accountable, let's do it with the same standard, because I don't think it's right.
So there you have Mark Meadows calling out the hypocrisy and basically saying, look, you know, we're really trying to make mountains out of molehills here, and we have mountains all around us in the form of people who are literally involved in the Obama administration, targeting President Trump, illegally abusing the FISA court, illegally violating Section 702 and unmasking U.S. citizens as a part of their investigatory work, which was not related to anything other than a direct influence, a direct sought influence over the 2016 election. So, you know, if we were going to start somewhere, why don't we start there instead of just jumping right into the nonsense, which is being presented by this whole subpoenaing Kellyanne Conway and going after her. It's abhorrent. It's despicable. It's disgusting. It is the extreme leftist tactics that are being put into full force now. And you notice there are certain stories I don't talk about here on the channel. That's because they don't even deserve the light of day. Like this nut job who's talking about all this stuff on CNN and MSNBC about Trump. These psychopaths are trying to destroy our country, and they will do it by any means necessary because they've lost their darn minds. Okay? It's just that it's beyond me. But that's what we're up against. So that's where we're going to go ahead and leave it a few more things before we go. Obviously, if you want to help out the channel, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Also, a great way to help out, watch these videos, share them on your social media, get it out that way. Because like I said, look, they're not going to get put in the suggestion box as far as I can tell. So share these, get that word out that way. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if you guys like this content, want to see me make more, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below so I can hear what you guys have to think about all this stuff. Because look, these are just crazier and crazier times that we continue to go down into. A few other ways you can help out the channel. You can come over here and find me on justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk, where you can get access to all the latest Q stuff here, the Q sites, latest news from the main news sites, breaking news here, of course, and the latest videos from the channel. It's a cool way to kind of get all your other stuff, all the content that you need over here. So I encourage everyone to go check that out. Also, don't forget to come find me on Twitter at JustInformYou on Twitter. You can get all my funny, thought-provoking, interesting tweets here, and we can have a conversation outside the channel, so that's a cool way you can come help out. Don't forget, I have a new channel up, Just Informed Podcast. You guys come here, click the subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. I got a special interview lined up that's going to be coming out in the next day or two on the Just Informed Podcast, and it's going to be very interesting, so I really hope you guys go check that out. Now, a few other things. If you want to help out, you can contribute financially. I have a Patreon, patreon.com. It's a crowdfunding website. You come here, patreon.com/justinformedtalk. Click the button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation. You set it and forget it. You guys are what have kept this channel alive. Your support is what keeps it alive in the face of the nonstop craziness with YouTube and their demonetization and their algorithmic suppression. So you guys are what have kept this channel alive. So thank you for your support. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. Thank you to everybody who does that. And you should check that out. Everything we talked about here in this episode will be in the description, so you should go down there and check for links to anything that you're interested in learning more about. Before we go, though, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today I want to talk about the diversity of spiritual gifts that we all have. There's a book there's a chapter in 1 Corinthians that talks about this specifically, chapter 12. And I want to share these words with you because I think that they can help you understand maybe what different and special gifts we all have that we can help to contribute to the glory of God and the grace that God has given us to be thankful and righteous. This is really something I want to share with you, but it's chapter 12, verse 4 through 11. And it says, "Now there are different gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different ministries, but the same Lord. And there are different activities, but the same God is active in everyone and everything. A manifestation of the Spirit is given to each person to produce what is beneficial. To one is given a message of wisdom through the Spirit, to another a message of knowledge by the Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another the performing of miracles, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another different kinds of languages, to another interpretation of languages. But one and the same Spirit is active in all these, distributing to each one as he wills." So that's our commonality. We're all given different gifts by the same Spirit. No matter who you are, everyone and everything, it says it right there. The Holy Spirit exists in each and every one of us. And though we may not be able to contribute in the same ways as one another, we can contribute. And that's what God calls us to do. And that's what I'm calling you to do right now. If you know that you're being called by God to contribute, think about what your best gifts are and what your talents are, and how you can help grow those and how you can use those to share God's glory, because you may not have thought of it. If you're a good talker, maybe you can talk to your friends about how they're saved and how God loves them. If you're a good athlete, maybe you can share with your teammates the power of Christ and the glory of God. Maybe if you're a great worker and you have a great job or you have a company, maybe you could start talking to your employees about how they're blessed and how God's grace is truly greater, and how it's Christ died on the cross for their sins so that they could have eternal salvation. I know it seems trivial and small in the long run, but we're all given these special gifts, right? And the Spirit exists in all of us. And even if you haven't found your true calling or your true gift yet, remember that Spirit is inside of you, just waiting to be unleashed unto the world to save not only your soul, but to save others and to help you bring others to Christ as you come closer to Christ, as we come closer to Christ together. So look, this is what you're called to do, and I hope these words inspire you to go out into the world and make it a better place. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. So thank you guys for watching this episode. Again, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure it's bell for notifications. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. If you guys like this content and want to see me make more, that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.